everybody. Dan, Brooke, can you see my screen okay?
Yep, that looks great.
All right. Okay, everybody, just want to be clear. This particular webcast, we're only going to cover 9.2.4 flavor of tools releases. We have many webcasts that we've done over the past couple of years on the other flavors of 9.2, you know, things like putting objects in the database, object usage tracking, that type of material. I'm assuming you've all heard about that at this point, because there's quite honestly, there's just enough information on 9.2.4 for an entire webcast. But if you need to, if you're on maybe a flavor before 9, you know, one of the early releases of 9.2 or before that, look up one of those as well and give that a shot. So a few bits of information. If you hadn't heard yet, update 4 was released last week. That's, you know, an application software update so that, you know, has all the code current ESUs as of December 11th. 9.2.4 tools release that we're talking about was launched on November 6th of this year. Shortly thereafter, less than a week later, 9.2.4.1 was available. You know, just because the .0 tools releases tend to be, you know, maybe a little less than perfect. But if you want to learn about the announcements, I put this link here for you. It'll tell you all about update 4, 9.2.4. Some recent talks with our friends at Oracle said 9.2.4.2 should be available very shortly, first quarter, if not before year's end. No official guarantee on the date though from Oracle. So this process, from a technical perspective and from a functional perspective, was actually a big change. If you went from like 9.2.5 to 9.2.5 or something like that to 9.2.3, although there were significant changes, the underlying technologies, you know, didn't get adjusted all that much. That's not the case here with 9.2.4. It's a little bigger than one of your past tools releases. And what we did is put some key links here for you to, when you get a copy of this, you can click on them, take you right to where you need to be. The tools upgrade process, especially if you're going to do 64-bit processing on the deployment server, requires several new steps. It can be quite complex, and there's some technology changes. So what we did is we put some links here. Net change, some of the various functional features are on here, the joint venture, lease management, etc., just to make your life a little bit easier. So to talk about some of the key features, the Orchestrator Studio has been completely redone, not only from a functional perspective, but from a technology perspective. And I'll talk a little more about those. But basically, on first launch of the Orchestrator Studio, users will immediately see top-level access to all orchestration components. The graphical flow, you know, it displays orchestrations in a graphical, which is interactive, and make it a little bit easier for you to see. You'll also be able to run orchestrations directly from Orchestrator Studio. Basically, in the older releases, prior to this, there was a separate tool, the Orchestrator client, that you would do that from. And I'd like to think of the Orchestrator client kind of acting like your third-party integration tool, but you could see it, directly. But now you can do it right within the Studio. Don't have to go to the secondary tool. The scheduler's improved, a broad range of process automation functionalities, redesigned, again, graphical user interface. Also, the scheduler user interface provides, you know, single click to start and stop a scheduled job. It's an intuitive interface that lists all orchestrations that have schedules associated with them, and a toggle button to start and stop it. There's also now monitoring of scheduled jobs. which gives you different kinds of metrics about those scheduled jobs, including the last time an event was run, the next time it's supposed to run, and a health check of the last 10 runs. There's also the auto start capability where it provides a toggle button to indicate that a job should be automatically started whenever AIS server is restarted. From a technical perspective, there's no longer a separate installation. You don't have the Scheduler Studio, Orchestrator Studio now is inherently a part of AIS server. So in the 9.2.3 releases, you'd have to install a separate JVM that has the ADF components available for that, and then you would link it back to an AIS instance. It's now all included in the single install. So when it comes to a technology perspective, if you're looking to use, just do a change component, like for those of you that might have watched a 9.2.3 tools webcast that we did where we could just click on a button to change component, that's no longer the case. You're going to have to reinstall a JVM from scratch and then abandon the Orchestrator Studio JVM down the road. Also, in 9.2.4, there's been an enhancement to the watch list. Basically, it's been enhanced with an option to mark a summary row in an application. It provides more accurate results in watch lists, but also enhances the alerting and reporting capabilities. It also generates notifications periodically based on the criteria. This feature basically enables users to focus on other important tasks. Let's see, user experience enhancements. Dan, do you want to take these or you want me to go? I'm not sure because some of it is how to use it, but I have the material. Just want to know if you want to take it.
Well, you're running with it right now. I'll let you run with that if you want, and I'll jump in when we get to the
okay,
new stuff.
Fair enough. Okay, some of the user experience enhancements, the form extensibility. Basically, you can associate a orchestration support on grids. That started in 9.2.3.3 capability, but it's been improved here. It provides additional capabilities by enabling orchestrations to run iteratively over each selected row in a grid, and to map the output of an orchestration back to both the header and grid fields. It's considerably reduced repetitive tasks of in editing the grid records manually. Of course, I'd probably still do it manually, but then again, I'm a techie. So an example, if you have a sales order that has 100 detail lines and you need to change the date requested column to today's date, now to accomplish this, you would just create a new orchestration that takes the order number, today's date as input values, and updates the date requested column of the grid and with the output of the orchestration. It will then update the date value of date requested column to today's date in just one click for all 100 detail lines. So it's a new way of thinking, new way of using existing tools in conjunction with orchestrations, improving your workflow, and allowing you to do repetitive tasks. One person put some of these orchestrations is to just think of things that you might take a clipboard and walk around and do things on a clipboard. Those are the things you might want to start thinking about using for orchestrations. Personalization, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, Oracle's statement of direction on this is that if you're a developer and thinking about developing something, Oracle is recommending that you first consider doing personalization. In fact, they have a tool called the Decustomizer tool that'll actually look at some of your customizations and tell you where you can replace development activities with personalization. But this new feature, form security, the system admin can now protect form personalization by restricting access to the base form. It enables you to change the user experience for application using form personalization and secure it and secure the new form to be the only interface. It also removes the need to customize applications to have mandatory experience for users. Again, just what I kind of said, replace some development with personalization. Admins can secure it, via OMW for web or even regular, UDO security. Sorry about that, wrong tool. This last one is just kind of a cute little change that they made, kind of long time coming. You can now color code your environments. Many of us have modified the HTML code, the .css files, the Java files, and we're able to do that manually. But now there's a way to do it and control it inside of JDE itself without having to modify the code. So a few other features, like we simplified deployment security of Orchestrator Studio. I think I mentioned that the ADF framework, a separate ADF JVM was required, which usually required the addition of a new server. So basically your AIS instance is going to control all of this. It's available through the AIS URL, and it just eliminates the requirement for a discrete WebLogic server. So saves you a piece of equipment, maybe a little less RAM in some cases. This scalable elastic deployment in OCI, it's just for those of you that are thinking about the Oracle Cloud. I've had several people ask me if I move to the cloud, can I have automatic scaling? If I need more resources, it just scales up automatically and then ramps back down when I don't need it. Well, guess what? Now it's available, but only via OCI. So it is a huge step forward. Hopefully someday you'll see that capability exist in other platforms. There's a lot that you can do in Azure and AWS with scalability, but it is automatic inside of OCI. Again, you have the Terraform stage server image on the Oracle Cloud marketplace, allowing for quicker deployments because there's already staging set up for you, and basically the Terraform X is like pardon the word, don't confuse the word. You basically can orchestrate implementations at the OCI level. There's also a couple of new certifications. Orchestrator Studio is now certified to run on WebSphere, and it wasn't prior to that. You had to have a WebLogic server. So if you like WebSphere and don't want to use WebLogic, you no longer have to because of the Orchestrator Studio. Also, one other thing that has changed is that there's no longer a need to add whitelists to the AIS server. That's all done inside the JD Edwards EnterpriseOne model. I personally struggled with that. It seems like every time somebody from Dan's team needed access, we had to modify the ini file bounce instances, and it was definitely very, very cumbersome. A biggie, and this is one of the things that changes what you do as a technical person, and that is the 64-bit enablement on the deployment server. So basically, you have the ability to do 64-bit all the way across the platform now. There's still some caveats to 32-bit and 64-bit development. If you've done some development in 32-bit, you're still going to need to leave some of that around. But basically, this is something Oracle told us a few years back they would never do. They would never make JD Edwards a 64-bit application, but they had to because Java. Oracle is no longer providing a 32-bit version of Java. It's insecure. So the Oracle team, the Java team has said, we're only going to be providing 64-bit. So that kind of made JD Edwards to have to figure it out, but they've been doing it slowly. Enterprise server about a year ago, deployment server now. This other new thing, this merge tools, this is kind of in line with upgrades and taking like the big ASUs like Update 4. I'm not sure I necessarily consider this a plus. Basically what Oracle has done is when you do a spec merge now, basically nothing gets merged. What they've done is they've provided you with new merge tools that allow you to compare, customizations to UBEs. table index and business views, and those merges no longer occur. So I don't know. That's a plus to have the tool. It's a negative to not have the ability to have a program do the merging. It's kind of been coming. Some other things that they stopped merging as well. So let's see. Finally, we've got support for file path encryptions for downloads. Basically, there's a file path parameter, and you can use site keys, just like you can use site keys to prevent you from having to see the user IDs and passwords in the JDE INI and the JAS INIs. Now it allows file path encryption for media objects, reports, and grids exports. So things that you would put on a file system if you have not put it into the database already. Few new platform certifications. Oracle Database 19C, 32-bit and 64-bit on Linux and Windows, 32-bit just on Solaris. 19C is what you might be hearing as the autonomous database, making things a little more self-tuning, a little bit less reliance on DBAs, which can be expensive resources. And also there's some, Oracle Jet 7.01 is now supported. All right, Dan, I'm going to let you take over here. I'll just hit the next button when you want me to go to the next button.
You see my little changer there. You got Vanna White. Okay.
Yep. you want me to run the screen for you? Is that okay?
If you would, please. If you could, that'd be great.
Go ahead.
Well, look, what's new in the 924 applications? There's some changes. Again, every time we get a tools release, we get a few new things thrown in there, which is nice. We've got some major groups here of the financials and the human capital management, manufacturing, some order management, and some localizations. So let's kind of hit some of the financial ones first. On here we've got joint venture management. Kind of heard a lot about that. Now a lot of these things are actually going to be functioning nicely. We'll talk about that in a second. Some AP issues where we can do some restrictions and some calculations, which is great, and some actual GL stuff for our lessee. So we'll talk about that as well. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about joint management. We got the top 10 little things they fixed here that's now working. We can actually define the joint ventures a little better, specifying the effective date percentages of ownership, calculate the overhead charges, allocating the indirect costs to the joint venture is kind of important, calculating the venture partners' prorated share of cost and revenue, manage your cash costs, pay or bill the partners for their share of the expenses or revenue, provide financial reports for the ventures. In addition, they're also doing some other reporting for some management oversight, as well as including traceability and auditability of all the transactions. You can go to the next one, please. You can go to the next page, please. Thank you. One of the AP issues we got here, we've got the accounts payable. You can actually now ensure you're only paying vouchers that are selected for payment, meaning you can pick and choose what you're paying, not just something that's due, right? So it's a nice way to let the finance department pick and choose what they want to do. Next page, please. As well as same thing, you can actually do some withholding tax calculations flexibility, which again is something that was pretty rigid before. Now you can actually, based on processing action, change a few things. Next page. Okay, and for our GL parts, this is actually really one big thing, but I broke it up into two sections here. But multi-currency leases, when you've got something that was not in whatever the company currency was, it was really a pain to kind of to calculate things. Now you can, because multi-currency is available within the lease functionality. And lease termination, they've added a few different ways to end the lease that are now in JDE. Okay, next one. For HCM, I'm not going to know a whole lot about this. I'll tell you that right now, but I will tell you that these are some pretty cool things. I talked with somebody, they're like, oh yeah, we got to have these. So they've got some corrections to the Pennsylvania school district codes. The ability to see the full social security number, apparently. I asked about this one particularly. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, they usually, if there's security turned on, it's on for everybody for a social security number. So there's a way now that I guess that role can now see that, which is pretty nice. Flexibility in populating the on date for quick hires, and the EEO information is updated, as well as the Australian Tax Authority updates. And manufacturing, we've got a couple of them. This first one was one that we've probably modified about, I don't know, 10 times since I've been here in the last 6 or 7 years. Basically copying item branch records and also bill of material records to other branches. It's really nice to be able to do it in programmatically versus, you know, one at a time or things. So there's the nice thing is the bill of material one does have a proof and a final mode, which is pretty nice. So you can actually take a one business unit's bills and actually just pop them up to the next branch without, you know, doing it individually. So that's a very nice one. Okay, I think that's, I got some order management ones as well. In order management, we've got a few things. Again, you know, doing the print delivery notes, I've actually now put it as a record reservation to make things so it doesn't step on each other, which is pretty nice. And the sales proposal generation simplification, truly using the BI publisher, you can actually do some pretty quick enhancements that simplify the generation of those things, of these sales generation. Proposal generation. And there's a gazillion localizations out here. You know, for depending where you're at, I know that, you know, the Japan one with the new emperor, that was a pretty interesting thing. I didn't realize that happens. But, you know, emperor's name needs to be registered with everything that's out there as well. But yeah, there's a lot of, I'm not going to go into all these individually, but there's a lot of them. Localizations, as there always are with these tools releases. And as John covered most of this for the Orchestrator, you know, the new Orchestrator coming out 9.2.4 is actually going to be 8.0, I believe. And it's, you know, it does not have any ADF. You can run everything from the studio, which is nice. You talked about the Orchestrator scheduler, which is also very nice. It's much quicker and easier. And the ability to associate an orchestration on the grid, based on the grid, using, like, for instance, if you're using the extended fields, you know, field form extensions are now supported, so that's going to help you do a lot of things like that. And it's, you know, pagination's in there now, so that's going to make things run a little bit faster as well. So that's what's new in the application side of life, and pretty cool, pretty good functional stuff out there. I'm pretty happy about that.
All right. I'll take it back then to talk a little bit more about the MTRs. And this is the, you know, maybe up until this point, a lot of that you may have heard already, or maybe not as in detail, but read about it. But what I wanted to do from the techie side was go into some of the nuts and bolts of the actual practical implementation of a 9.2.4 tools release, because it has the platform certifications, the MTRs have changed, and taking a new tools release has become more complicated as a result. Just as a few things to mention, go to doc ID 2054020.1 and you'll see some of the required components for doing this. But one thing that you need to be aware of is that if you're on an older version of Visual Studio .NET 2017, you're going to have that at this point. Many of you may be on it because about a year ago is when this started to be required, but if you hadn't taken a tools release in a year, you may be faced with doing that, as well as the Microsoft redistributables and the software development kit. You may be faced with upgrading that. Assuming that your operating system is okay, I didn't see anything around operating systems for the deployment server that posed a problem. You should be on, you know, the 2012 R2 is still supported. So If you're on at least that, you don't necessarily have to upgrade right now. The database needs to, if you're still on 12.102, okay, you don't have to upgrade the planner database or the database client, but 12.201 is also supported. So you might not have to take that, but if you're on anything older from an MTR perspective, you're going to need to be updated. And Java is where, you know, the Visual Studio is an issue, and Java is also a real issue. If you're looking to use 64-bit and also need 32-bit, you're probably going to need both. And they may be at different release levels to get you to the proper one. I'll show you the next page on the deployment server MTR, and you'll notice down there that Oracle JDK, look at this, there's 41 releases, and you notice this 1.8.0.92, that's really a rather old JDK. So you're going to have to spend some time grabbing yourself a 32-bit JDK and a 64-bit JDK. So you'll notice that 2012 R2 is still a supported database. Enterprise server, you got some of the same things going on there. If you're on Windows, you're going to need Visual Studio.NET 2017 or higher. If you haven't already done that, you might be faced with a reinstall, especially if you only have one enterprise server that has that on it. You might be standing up a new server for yourself as well. So same issue with JDK, 41 different releases available. So I put some of these down here for you to look over, maybe save yourself a few minutes. You can always go to the Oracle certifications yourself. You notice I put what I typed in my search criteria to get this. Database server, not a whole lot new there. It's just that, Oracle database 19 is now supported. I think up to 924, I think 19 was supported, but only 32-bit. So this Tools release now allows 64-bit, at least on Linux and Windows. HTML server, really not a whole lot. Other than that, if you're on a version other than 12.213, you might be faced with reinstalling a WebLogic server as well. We've seen people on like 12.2.0, older versions there, or 12.1.3. You're definitely facing an HTML server install as well. So now I think you can understand why I'm saying that an upgrade to Tools 9.2.4 is a little more intense than what you've seen in the past. The underlying architecture may need to be changed. So I guess this is more just information about some of the things that you have to do to get the Orchestrator Studio working. You're going to need this ESU JN17375 for the security fixes and direct access to scheduler. There is some links here on how to manage them, how to manage the security, and basically it's UDO security. But if you click on this link, it actually shows you some samples that are really good. We'd have to take another half hour to go over the security setup of that. Notifications have changed and how to do that. So you want to go to go to one of these two sites as well, either creating the notifications or how to set it up in 9.2.4. Okay, so when you talk to the folks at Oracle, although you could go directly from to a new 64-bit system, Oracle is still recommending a phased approach. The phased approach is to first install the 32-bit version. And this is the process for doing the 32-bit version. Get all the code, search for 924X, download the 64-bit stuff while you're there. You're going to have to download the planner ESU. I didn't put the number in because it could change tomorrow, but if you put the number in for the search, you'll find the current one. And also for 9.1, there's a different bug level. If you're asking yourself, can you apply 9.2.4 to ERP 9.0? No, you cannot. The last version of 9.2 available for 9.0 is the 9.2.2.x series. If you're on 9.2.3 series or 4 series, it only is supported with 9.1 and 9.2. Just for those of you for information, Premier support might even be, wait a minute, it might even be extended support for 9.1 ends in March of 2020. So if you're still on 9.1, you might want to check your support agreement with Oracle and make sure you're okay. You also need to put an application enhancement ESU. That's what gets you some of the new application features that we've been talking about, that Dan talked about. Bug 247-10277 for 9.2 and 259-80269 for 9.1. You're also going to need the automated special instructions, and it used to be different for 9.1 and 9.2, but this time it's the same one, TL924001. So you search for that in Change Assistant. You can go to Oracle support as well, but I find it easier to find things in Change Assistant and get that automated special instructions. That's the thing that'll create all of the new tables and populate them that you need. So if you're planning to do 64-bit, you're going to be needing a migration tool, 64-bit migration tool, SMT 9240X64. For 9.1, you also need this ADF containers fix, bug number 256200039. So basically install all of those in the above order, and then you'll need to do a full package build. Our practice in the lab has been, there's been a couple of issues that we have to troubleshoot. Not a big deal. Mostly everything just works after doing it. So that's the first step. That's phase one. Now, 64-bit. After you've got the 32-bit running, you say, well, I may not need the 32-bit. The reason why they're recommending that you do it is because it reduces a lot of the variables. And Oracle didn't really go into what that means, but I'm taking their word for it. If they say it's easier to go with the 32-bit and then add the 64-bit, I'm going to do it. So they're saying once you've got the 32-bit working, then upgrade to 64-bit on the deployment server. They're also recommending upgrading one path of code at a time to 64-bit multi-foundation, but also you got to be careful of your bitness now. So you have multiple foundations and you have multiple bitnesses, 32 and 64-bit. Okay, so then you have to migrate any of the 32-bit code to 64-bit. And once you've done it, Oracle said there's no good path back. So in fact, they don't support it, going back from it on a path code. So once you start down that route, you're actually committed. So make sure you have a good backup. So apparently there's still 32-bit development that's kind of a little bit out of my area or expertise, but you can do 32-bit development and migrate it to 64-bit, but basically business function is usually done in 32-bit. You check it in through BizBuild and it goes through a 64-bit conversion, and they're both written to the repository. It'll contain both versions, but there is a tool that can purge them. The 32-bit objects at a later time. So there is a frequently asked questions. I put it on here from Oracle Doc 239-0692.1. So continuing after this, the process here, deploy that migration tool, update the server manager console and agents, update the deployment server to 64-bit, install the 64-bit planner issue. There is 2 different planner issues, a 32-bit and a 64-bit. Then apply the tools enhancement ESU, the ASI, implement 64-bit on the enterprise server if you've not done so already, because you could have previously done that. Then build and deploy a 64-bit client. You'll have to make some changes to get the development clients working. And then you'll have to, validate that it's working across the board. And then there's this post-upgrade task. You have to update the release master to say that you're all 32 or 64-bit. And then you can purge the 32-bit objects to save on some space. Whew, boy. I hope this helps. It's been, I'm trying to share some of the experience that we had of doing this in our labs and at our clients. already, and hopefully can save you some time in doing that as well. So with that, Brooke, I'm done. Dan, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I'm just like out of breath watching you go through that part.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff there.
Was that, yeah, maybe it was a little fast, and I'll answer any questions. I think most CNC folks, are looking for a checklist, and there's a checklist.
Awesome. No, that was great. And everybody, just so you know, all of the slides and the recording from today will be available to you if you would like to listen to it again. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John, and thank you so much, Dan, as well. I just want to cover a few follow-up items, and then we'll move on to our question and answer section of the webcast. So our webcast today is part of our free ongoing educational webcast series on JD Edwards. And our upcoming webcasts are currently listed on the schedule. To sign up for them, just go to getgsi.com/JD Edwards webcasts. And check out ERPtalk.com, which is a problem-solving forum where you can get your JD Edwards and other enterprise applications questions answered. And be sure to stay connected with us on social media. All of our handles are currently listed on the screen right now. And just to see our most up-to-date events. All right, let's see here. And if you'd like to sign up for our weekly email reminders on webcasts, our monthly newsletter, or to create an account to access our resource center, you can go to getgsi.com, go to resources and events on the main menu, and then you can select JD Edwards on the right-hand side. All right, and while I see we have a couple questions here, I just want to remind you that if you would still like to submit a question, you can do so through the question panel in the GoToWebinar console window on the right side of your screen. And if you minimized it earlier, just click the left-facing arrow key to redisplay the questions panel. All right, John and Dan, are you guys ready? Okay, so we've got our first question here, and it says, is promotion of orchestrations written in TR 924 to TR 923 supported?
Wow, that's a good question. Boy, there's so many changes to the orchestrations. I am fairly certain that the orchestration object itself, I think what you're talking about, Bojan, is when you're in a multi-foundation situation where development is on 924 and you have 923 in production, and you're looking to see if you can promote them and will they be working. The answer to that is yes. It is supported. The caveat is some of the user face capabilities won't necessarily work, but the orchestration itself is promotable. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, Bojan said thank you, John. Awesome. Thank you so much. And then the only other question we had was if this would be available afterwards. And yes, you will receive an email with a link to our resource center where you can access a copy of today's recording as well as the presentation. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, John and Dan, and everyone for your questions and for attending today. And as a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you just complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit, and you will be receiving an email with a link, like I said before, to our resource center. And after today's webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card, and anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible, and we will notify the winner. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can contact myself, John, or Dan, and our contact info is currently listed on the screen. We want to thank you again, everybody, and we hope that you have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.